thank you all for coming, especially those of you who are coming from far away. It's so exciting to be able to say people are coming from far away. So that's a great thing, and Cleveland's getting around, so to speak. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about food and restaurants. The restaurant history, isn't just about the food that was being served in a particular eatery. It's about the people and events that made that place unique and special. And just like today, sometimes what makes a place special is the food. And sometimes it's the drink. And sometimes, not surprisingly, it's the person. There have always been rock stars among us. A few lucky eateries hit the trifecta of special food, drink, and people. Besides the obvious history of these eating establishments, it's good to remember that restaurants would be nowhere without food. Did you know that these are some of the edible items that are connected to Ohio? Cheez-It crackers, Stouffer Foods, Chef Boyardee, Quaker Oats, hot dogs, and beer cans, Lifesavers, and Beeman's chewing gum. But besides food, you need ways for packaging and preserving. So Ermel Cleon Frazee of Dayton invented the pull tab can opener for pop and beer cans. And Charles Strassacker of Valley City invented saran wrap. Ohio and Cleveland have always been cooking up good stuff one way or another. When Cleveland emerged, it looked like most New England towns of the time, a city center and a public square with a town laid out around it. Even at this early stage, the Cleveland House, at the current site of the Renaissance Cleveland Hotel on Public Square, was the center of the new city's social life. Of course, there were other hotels and markets to serve the travelers' needs for bed and board. There was the American House, where General Harrison addressed Clevelanders in 1840 during his log cabin and hard cider presidential campaign. And there was also the Euclid Tavern, Belden's Tavern, and the Franklin House. Lorenzo Carter, one of Cleveland's first settlers, built its first public house in 1797. He got a license to keep a tavern just 4 years later. It became the location of the first social affair of the city, a 4th of July celebration in 1801. 30 people came to the party and enjoyed whiskey, sweetened with maple sugar, fiddle music, and dancing. One historian called this log cabin tavern pretentious, and that didn't seem to matter, however, to all of those trappers and non-genteel people that would work there for whiskey and board. This was the start of a tavern boom on the frontier. In 1807, Amos Spafford opened a tavern and George Wallace opened one in 1812. And in just over a decade, the city was ready to receive visitors. By 1829, Cleveland had 168 dwelling houses, 13 mercantile stores, 15 warehouses, 4 drugstores, 1 book and stationery store, 9 groceries, 6 taverns, and about 1,000 inhabitants. The city grew, as did its citizens' appetites. And by 1905, there were 2,475 cafes in town. Though citizens and visitors alike enjoyed the hospitality of the city's eateries and lodging houses, not everyone thought they were a good idea. Mrs. Rockefeller, yes, that Mrs. Rockefeller, thought that hotels were a breeding ground of evil, outlandish capers, the refuge of nymphs and satyrs. And she may have been right. In 1837, Cleveland's first city directory listed a Shakespeare saloon, which promised Falstaffian delights to its customers. It couldn't have been all that bad, though. Most taverns closed by midnight. Throughout the years, the city has been home to more beaneries, cafes, grills, cafeterias, luncheonettes, greasy spoons. You get the idea. More restaurants than you could shake a skewer at. Many were headed by distinctive managers who raised eating from a business transaction to an act of social artistry. They gave the plain purchase of food an environment of comfort and camaraderie. There were hosts like Bob Wertheim at the Pewter Mug, Tony Falcone at the Hannah, Marie Schreiber at the Tavern Chop House, Pat Joyce's Iggy McIntyre, and the New York Spaghetti House's Jim Burgay. And who could forget colorful owners like Otto Mosier at the bar named after him, and Herman Perchner at Alpine Village. They were arguably two of Cleveland's most colorful characters. These men made their restaurants not just a place for food, but a destination. Though each generation looks back fondly with a feeling of loss and nostalgia at the restaurants of their time that have disappeared, each new opening brings another personality, another mouth-watering menu, and another place to remember in later days. But before we take this tour, let me tell you just a few of my favorite stories. Hans Allendorf's Cafe on Chester was the site of probably one of the strangest attempted thefts anywhere. Apparently, Allendorf decided to raise something bigger than a flag over his door. He put up a buffalo, a steer from a government ranch in Montana, somehow managed to make his way to Ohio to be hung over the entrance to one of Cleveland's original sports bars. On the night of December 17, 1938, it was reported that at least two men attempted to take that buffalo home, apparently thinking they could eat it. It was the Depression after all. The Buffalo burglars were foiled by the night watchman who heard the crash when the bison hit the ground during the robbery. The men hightailed it out of there. The watchman retrieved a part of the blade that broke off during the emancipation attempt as the butchers tried to cut out the chunk of meat. Though the police were called, they claimed they couldn't actually do anything since the men were gone and the buffalo was still there. After the wound was sewed back together, the buffalo was rehung above the door, this time with a chain instead of a rope. Apparently, no one tried to steal it again. Rafferty's Monkey Club has to be on the list of the all-time most unusual restaurants. A sign in the window advertised a hard-boiled egg with every drink. A beer and poor whiskey cost a dime, and for an additional 5 cents, you could get a glass of the best brandy. Rafferty began showing free movies on Saturday night in his saloon around 1905 in what was apparently an early variation of dinner and a show, although this was more like drinks and a movie. True to its name, the Monkey Club actually had 3 monkeys that wandered around the saloon along with several raccoons. There were 3-legged chickens which resided by cages by the bar, and an intimidating ape named Kai, and a bear with a bad temperament that had been rescued from Luna Park, where his irascibility was apparently a liability. Even the inebriated customers felt threatened by the ape and the bear, although it didn't stop them from sprinkling itching powder on the ape's back or giving it beer to put him to sleep at night. Things must have been pretty rough and tumble out there because there were so many people and animals crowded into that place that they had to hire prize fighters to be the bartenders. The Oak Cafe and Restaurant on Short Vincent was owned by Joseph Grogan. According to a postcard description, it was the most beautiful and most popular cafe in the city. It had an underpass that connected it to the Star Theater, a burlesque house on Euclid Avenue. Theater goers used the tunnel to come over for refreshments during intermission. But the notoriety of that tunnel was eclipsed on August 20th, 1917, when Leonard Lyons murdered roughhouse John Murphy there after an argument over a competition between the downtown gambling houses. But join me now for a little trip back in time so that we can tour some of Cleveland's lost restaurants. I promise no murders, no monkeys, no calories to worry about. We'll be going back into the past in no particular order to sample the food and atmosphere of these popular places. Hopefully, our time machine will provide a smooth ride, so fasten your seatbelts and let's go. We'll start our tour where everything starts in Cleveland at Public Square. When the Terminal Tower was completed in 1927, it was the second tallest building in the world. The complex covered 3.5 acres, included the 52-story Terminal Tower, the Hotel Cleveland, the 18-story Medical Arts Building, Builders Exchange, and the Midland Building. Higbee's was still under construction and the post office was in the planning stages, but already the complex was the heart of Cleveland. Higbee's department store opened in 1931 with 12 stores. There was a tea room on the 10th floor when the store opened, which served lunch for $1, a salad for 65 cents, a tea plate for 35 cents. The room offered an a la carte menu of soups and sandwiches and a children's menu. Since that room became the Silver Grill around 1935, it's become a Cleveland favorite. And now, 24 years later, in 1959, it's still the place to come, especially at Christmas. My favorite lunch is the roast prime rib with mustard, pickle, hash browns, and a salad for $1.65. If you prefer, you can get roast half of a chicken with whipped potatoes and a fruit salad for $1.50. Of course, there's desserts, lemon chiffon pie, apple pie, mocha tart, and the usual ice cream or sherbet. Then we can go downstairs and shop a bit before we continue our tour. While we wait for lunch, let's enjoy the room. It's so beautiful. Its Art Deco design is the classic element throughout. Even the menu and table lamps are Art Deco. The room has 6 shades of green, you'll notice. It's combined with a silver leaf pattern. Doors, window fixtures, and furnishings are aluminum. And of course, everyone loves the fountain in the center, surrounded by the goldfish pond. Its understated elegance is a perfect complement to the rest of the room. Since it's lunchtime, we'll be entertained by the Louis Rich Orchestra. Notice that the children have their own special menu, and since it's Christmas, their meals are served in miniature stoves. The food and service here are held to a high standard. Eating at the Silver Grill is an experience. Did you know that they serve so much chicken that one person's entire job consists of doing nothing but removing the meat from the bones? Ooh. Anyway, we'll start off our tour well fed and then we'll head out. But of course, before we leave, we have to check out the Christmas windows. They're worth coming downtown for. We'll head over to Chef Hector's next. It's a strange looking building. On the outside, it's more like a warehouse, But when you go down those stairs and find the giant, beautiful dining room with the red check tablecloths and the wine bottle candles, you know you're in a wonderful Italian restaurant. The pasta and sauce, incredible. The food is so good, in fact, that most of the stars of the Metropolitan Opera won't go anywhere else when they're in town. Chef Hector Boiardi is the man that makes this place and the meals so special. His customers love his food so much that they want jars full of the chef's special sauce to take home. So Boiardi has started a whole new type of food service, carry out dinners. Now, apparently, they started out asking for the recipe, but Boiardi wasn't quite so willing to share the secrets to the sauce. And so Chef Hector gave them milk bottles full of it instead. Unfortunately, the would-be chefs would often come back complaining it didn't taste the same when they made it. Boiardi told them they were using the wrong pasta. A friend told Hector that rather than trying to coach the clueless, he should just offer the whole meal to go. And soon he was charging for packages of uncooked pasta, cheese, and bottles of sauce, and the income from this side business began to exceed the restaurant's. Eventually, he began selling the packaged meals in grocery stores, and the name got changed to Boiardi to make sure everyone could say the name correctly. He was a hit, in person or in a box. After our meal of some of his famous spaghetti and meatballs, we'll probably want to take some home too. But before we leave for our next stop, I should tell you that Hector's other claim to fame includes catering President Woodrow Wilson's wedding to Edith Bowling Galt on December 18, 1915, at the Greenbrier Hotel in West Virginia. Apparently, the president was happy with his wedding feast because he chose Boiardi to supervise the preparation of the homecoming meal that President Wilson held at the White House for 2,000 returning World War I soldiers. Kind of makes us feel like we were at the wedding too, doesn't it? Our next stop will be at Finley's Philanthropy on Huron Road. Now, who would have thought that a person named Richard Finley, having only $10 in his pocket, would make it in the restaurant business? The Philanthropy only opened about a year ago, and now in 1908, Finley already has 5 other restaurants. The Philanthropy is a beefsteak dungeon. If you've never been to one, you are in for a surprise. These are popular forms of entertainment among wealthy businessmen. The beefsteak clubs go back to England and the early Republic. Large restaurants and hotels now have special banquet rooms called beefsteak dungeons, dens, caves, garrets for the feast. And groups of men gather there for a night of fun, free from conventional dining etiquette. The festivities involve the men donning white butcher aprons and eating steak with their hands while sitting on boxes and barrels in dark, menacing looking basements. Not to worry though, it's safe. And when you taste those triangles of bread with the thick slices of steak dipped in melted butter and grilled on a hickory fire, you'll be glad we came. There's also pre-dinner sherry, appetizers, celery stalks, and mugs of beer. It will be the highlight of our tour for sure. Our next stop, the New York Spaghetti House. They're famous for their brown sauce and for waiters who never write anything down but manage to bring you the right order anyway. Mario and Maria Brigatti opened the Spaghetti House in 1927, and now in 1957, it's become one of the longest running family operated restaurants in town. Mario patterned the eatery after the basement spaghetti house he worked in while living in New York. The building was built in 1870 as the parsonage of Zion Lutheran Church. In 1904, the Lyric Theater bought the church. The old parsonage was used to house its actors. In 1921, it became the new Empire Theater. When the restaurant bought the parsonage, the theater supplied the spaghetti house with some regular customers, including Red Skelton, W.C. Fields, Jimmy Durante, and Mickey Rooney. Often, the performers would stay upstairs in the restaurant when other housing wasn't available. When it first opened, the spaghetti house catered to its Turkish and Greek neighbors by providing a coffee house atmosphere where customers drank Turkish coffee and smoked Turkish cigarettes. The New York Spaghetti House provides not just a dining experience, but an artistic one. Mario commissioned Art Deco still life pieces for the lower dining room in the 1930s. They were replaced last year in 1956 with murals which depict scenes from Italy, including Venetian gondoliers, the Isle of Capri, Rome's Colosseum, and scenes from Florence. The wood-paneled walls and red and white check tablecloths are a perfect complement to these paintings and help with the old country feel. In fact, our stop here will make us feel like we spent a little time in Italy. I really want to take you to the casino, restaurant, and cafe. This building, one of my favorites. Leonard Schlather was born on June 30th, 1835, and came to America from his native Germany in 1852. He built this building, which has been hailed as the finest restaurant in the United States. And even now, in 1956, many of us consider it a treasure. Designed by Lehman and Schmidt, the three-story Flemish-style building cost $175,000. It has 3 floors with stained glass windows and frescoed walls. But its most amazing feature is a hanging oak staircase. Press writer Windsor French wrote that to see a hanging staircase drifting to the second floor with no support in one graceful curve is alone worth going to the place. It's a favorite spot for politicians, celebrities, newsmen, and the public. The reason is simple: good food served in an atmosphere of rich, opulent Victorian decor. The dining room is on the first floor and done in oak paneling carved in the Holland style and seats 189. The carved oak staircase goes to the second floor, which has stained glass windows, a banquet room, a smaller hall at the back with 6 tables, and 2 family dining rooms for private parties. There's a lunch and oyster counter on one side of the room and an impressive bar on the other. A wood carving of the family crest hangs over the bar, which is an outlet for Schlather's beer. Other unusual features of the building are the elevators to the second and third floor. There's even sleeping rooms for bachelors on the third floor. But enough of the building. Let's enjoy some oysters and beer over at the lunch counter. Our next stop, 6th and Superior at the Hollenden Hotel. There, we'll get to hear the Sammy Watkins Orchestra and Dean Martin in the Vogue Room. The 1942 menu includes top-notch hors d'oeuvres, followed by lobster paired with white Bordeaux. This hotel has been a special gathering place for celebrities of all kinds since it opened in 1885. Presidents like Cleveland, McKinley, Harrison, Hayes, Harding, Roosevelt, Taft, and Wilson, numerous congressmen, and other celebrities like David Lloyd George and Mark Twain have all been to the Hollenden. One celebrity of a different sort actually worked there. George Myers owned and operated the barber shop at the hotel. He was known as the best barber in America. Now, this wouldn't be all that surprising, except that Myers was an African American. Besides cutting the hair of some really influential men, Myers gained enough stature that he served as a delegate to the Republican National Convention in Minneapolis, Minnesota in 1892. He helped get McKinley nominated for president at the 1896 Republican National Convention, and he is credited with helping to secure the single vote that took Mark Hanna to the U.S. Senate chambers in 1897. Quite an accomplished barber. Speaking of Marcus Hanna, he was a regular at the hotel. In fact, Hanna hash was his favorite, and supposedly it originated there. Hanna would serve it at his own home. They say that people who ate at Hanna's home and had the hash there never ate it again anywhere else except at Hanna's own table. It is unclear if this not at any other table attitude affected sales at the Hollenden. The other in-hotel celebrity was bartender Harry Craddock. He wrote the Savoy Cocktail Book, which was published in 1930 and became the Bible for bartenders. It included the recipes for the White Lady and Corpse Reviver No. 2. Both were invented by the author. He also popularized the dry martini. However, good food and entertainment notwithstanding, the hotel was the place of one of the city's most bizarre events. It was so strange that it received national recognition from the New York Times. In March 1905, a New Yorker named Henry Woodward and a traveling salesman from Toledo, Ohio, named Charles Browse, both committed suicide by shooting themselves during the night at the hotel. This was extremely peculiar because these men did not know each other, and yet they both died in the same manner during the same night at the same hotel. There was no evidence to connect or link the two deaths. The final point in this deathly duet was that the revolvers with which the deeds were done were of the same caliber. Truly one for Ripley's, believe it or not. But I doubt that we'll have any murders tonight. Only good food and good music. Let's head over to the Theatrical Grill on Short Vincent. It's one of Cleveland's best known and most infamous spots. It's one of the longest running jazz joints in the area. You probably know that there was a fire there a few weeks ago in April 1987, but they've already reopened. Jazz pianist Glenn Covington is playing since the reopening since Monday, so we are sure to have a good time, especially since it's Saturday and we can get the specials for $9.95, which include chicken romano, veal parmesan, Boston scrod, and my favorite, frog legs. Of course, you know, one of Cleveland's more infamous mobsters and gamblers, Morris Mushy Wexler, owns the restaurant, which is probably the only place in town where judges, lawyers, and felons all sit together. Because of the club's notoriety, Wexler asked photographer Gene Bixby not to take pictures inside because he might photograph men whose wives didn't know they were there. Gentlemen beware, he's not the only photographer in town. For years, the Theatrical has been the place to see top stars like Judy Garland and Dean Martin and get in on some gambling for sporting events. Not coincidentally, it's the headquarters of Alexander Shondor Burns, or it used to be until that famous night in 1975. Now, everyone knows that in the 1940s, Burns became part owner. The bartenders, Eddie Hillel and Anthony Nino Rinicella, said he was a perfect gentleman, a generous tipper, and a soft touch, in spite of the fact that he was a notorious hoodlum. Rinicella said that Burns always drank scotch until the day before he died in 1975, when for some inexplicable reason, he ordered a beer. The next day, he was killed in a car bombing. His wake was held at the Theatrical. There were lots of people in attendance, and some speculated that FBI agents were there too. It is almost impossible to name all the famous people who played the Theatrical over the years. A short list includes Bobby Hackett, Jack Teagarden, Gene Krupa, Oscar Peterson, Dorothy Donegan, and Dizzy Gillespie. They had a fire back in 1960. It took firemen about 5 hours to get it under control. The building was destroyed. The only thing that managed to survive, a bottle of scotch. Rebuilding started almost immediately. During the construction, Wexler managed to keep most of his employees on the payroll and his customers supplied by renting a corner bar at the Hollenden. Ground was broken on the new Theatrical on October 19th. 1 year and $1.2 million later, it reopened with Jonah Jones, jazz trumpeter, on the bandstand. The new restaurant includes Little Neck steamed clams, Chateaubriand for two, broiled lobster, black Angus T-bone, and beef stroganoff cooked with vodka. Of the desserts, there's cheesecake, apple pie, lemon pie, double chocolate sundaes with fudge. The 1960s saw jazz artists like Clark Terry, Jimmy Forrest, and Dizzy Gillespie at the restored Theatrical. One particularly busy artist, cornet player, Muggsy Spainer. He generally played at Corman's, but one day in August 1963, he played at the Theatrical and at the Cleveland Browns halftime show. After 1979, pop performers began to invade the jazz world at the Theatrical. It was the only nightclub left on Short Vincent by 1980. But the stage stars were not the only celebrities there. 2 years ago, in 1985, bartender Nino Rinicella was the first Cleveland inductee into the Bartender Hall of Fame. He had been there since the 1940s. It was said he remembered customers' drinks even if he only served them once, and regular customers had drinks ready and waiting at the bar shortly before they entered. Now you know why I wanted to stop here. It may not be what it once was, but it's got a past like almost no other place in the city. We'll head over to the Frontier Room next. It's over at the Winton Carter Hotel. Now, this place had a real identity crisis for a while. First, it was the Hotel Free after the development, but the name didn't stick. I don't know, maybe people thought it was false advertising. Then it was called the Hotel Winton after Cleveland's pioneering carman, Alexander Winton. Doorknobs even had a W on them. Even now, in 1956, there are some doorknobs with a W still there. And then it became the Carter Hotel around 1931. And a few years later, it got to its current name after its new owner and the Cleveland settler Lorenzo Carter. Anyway, this luxurious hotel has everything: a ballroom, a banquet room done in Old English design, 200 rooms that cost $1.50 a day, with the rest running $2 to $5 a day, all with washed air year-round and iced in the summer. One of its claims to fame is that it has the first vice presidential suite in the world. We'll make a quick stop to look at the famous Rainbow Room, famous for being the location of some of the first live radio national broadcasts with the program Live from the Rainbow Room. Its chef, Hector Boiardi, is really making a name for himself here. To get there, we go down marble steps into the dining room. The walls are done in blue and ivory, and it's lit by silk lanterns, and the whole room just feels magical. There's world-class menu, and incredible entertainment, including an ice show. Oh, but all of that for another time. Tonight, we are going Western at the Frontier Room, a saloon right out of pioneer days. Manager Alan J. Lowe is dressed as a sheriff, complete with matching pair of Colt 45 revolvers with pearl handles and silver barrels. He asks us to check our shooting irons before he seats us at the wooden table with the wooden chairs and the red vinyl backs. He explains that he's allowed to keep his so he can keep order. Other rules of the room include requiring fighting females to pick up their mess, like hair, torn garments, and garters before leaving. The tobacco chewers have to help keep the place clean by making sure their aim is good. So we all have to remember that we're responsible for helping to keep the place in shape. The meal, definite old West chuck wagon fare, buffalo with potatoes and beans and drinks of whiskey and beer. To get service, we have to hit a genuine spur against a genuine horseshoe, though genuine is apparently defined loosely as the genuine greenery is plastic. Bob Lawrence from Music Carnival entertains us on the accordion, though this seems to be an odd choice for the room, but all in all, we'll have fun, and that gives new meaning to the term dinner theater. I know you'll love the Alpine Village on Euclid Avenue. It's 1955. The village has been feeding and entertaining people since 1934. It's best known for its parties and gatherings of celebrities and politicians. However, it also has live shows featuring artists like Pearl Bailey, Cab Calloway, and Artie Shaw. With all the stars playing at the village, radio shows often broadcast from here. There's even a dance floor that can be raised and lowered. Sometimes these stars can't hold a candle to owner Herman Perchner. And if we're lucky, we'll get to see him balance 55 mugs of beer while he delivers them to the customers. He slides into the table like a baseball player. But probably the craziest thing Herman has done was about 5 years ago in 1950, when he tried to help get more ticket sales for the Grotto Circus when it was in town. The manager complained about poor advance ticket sales. So Perchner told him that he should do something sensational, like have Carl Wallenda carry him on his back. The manager took him up on it and arranged for the event to take place at Public Hall. Perchner climbed on to the wire walker's shoulder for a death-defying feat, and the two headed across the wire without rehearsal or a safety net, 50 feet above the floor. After successfully making it across, Herman came down the rope ladder and fell flat on his face as the crowd cheered. Too bad we missed it. Anyway, while we're here, we can get bratwurst or pig knuckles. They even serve glasses of sauerkraut juice. But don't worry, there's also a lot of American favorites to choose from if those aren't quite your stein of beer. Since the Depression started 7 years ago with the crash of 1929, the availability of Broadway shows was sorely limited. So the Ohio Theater closed down. But lucky for those of us who can still afford to go out, it's reopened as the Mayfair Casino. They're calling it Cleveland's $1 Million Theater Restaurant. One of my favorite places in the casino is the cocktail lounge area in the theater lot. They say it's the largest and most beautiful cocktail lounge in America, and I believe it. The circular bar is said to be the longest in the world. On the old balcony level, there's the Sky Bar, which serves champagne cocktails for 75 cents. The theater auditorium has a circular stage, a bar, and dinner table. The Mayfair has 16 bartenders and 112 servers. We'll have filet mignon for $2.25 along with some wine. There's quite a selection of Bordeaux, Burgundy, Champagne, sherries, and ports from Italy, Hungary, and California. After dinner, we'll stay and listen to and dance to the orchestra. The casino has 3 dance bands and there's no cover charge. For another $1, we can stay for the 2-hour stage show if you want. Show times are 7:30 and 11:30, and I think Sophie Tucker's playing tonight. They say they're planning to put in a new sidewalk cafe next year, which Plain Dealer reporter Glenn Pullen says would make it one of Euclid Avenue's smartest and most colorful spots. There'll be a new bar in the foyer surrounded by tables and palm trees going all the way back into the lobby. A miniature bandstand is being built for a new girls' ensemble, which would double with Fred Heichel's Gypsies. It'll be Cleveland's version of the San Moritz Hotel Sidewalk Cafe in New York. But for now, it's dinner and dancing. We'll finish our tour with dessert at Where Else? Who Cares? C-Suites Restaurant in Playhouse Square. As the name implies, it is the place for desserts in 1960. It's the best place to take a date after the show. Owner Mo Bouquet created the menu of sensational sweets. And these concoctions are large ice cream sundaes, sodas, milkshakes, and dessert cocktails. The names for these fancy feasts are as fanciful as the creations themselves. Harum Sharum, Temple of Love, Oriental Parfait. Probably the most ornate is the Sheik of Araby, almost a foot high in an ornate bowl. It's truly ice cream art with raspberry sorbet, coffee ice cream, marshmallow cream, toasted pistachios, and dense whipped cream. You'll want to try one of everything, but remember, our next stop is the theater. Of course, we can always come back afterward. But before we leave, remember to toss some coins into the fountain for St. Jude's Hospital. And that concludes our high-speed time travel tour of Cleveland. We have just covered 222 years from Public Square to Playhouse Square in about 30 minutes, more or less. I hope you've enjoyed your journey in the Eve Time Flyer. Please join us again when we make another historic trip through time. You can continue your tour of the lost restaurants of downtown Cleveland by reading my book. And if by some chance you're still hungry after this tour, I invite you to visit any of the current existing restaurants in town, and may all your discoveries be delicious. Thank you for coming. Questions, comments, stories of your own you'd like to share? And Dawn, I'll let you figure out how to get these stories from our audience.
Let's see here. People, I think, are going to have to type them in the chat box.
Okay. Do you want to read them to me, or should I try and get at them, or what do you want to do?
I can read them to you if you'd like.
Okay, good.
Okay. So if anybody has any questions, please start asking them.
I see there's 3 in the Q&A. And there's 4 in the chat. I don't know. How about if I take the chat and you take the Q&A? Let's see what happens. Okay.
Oh, why was it called Short Vincent's? Michelle Breverman asked.
It was owned by Vincent at one time. Let me get to the actual facts here. I'd like to say I remember everything off the top of my head. That would be a lie. It was owned by a man named John Vincent. So that's how Vincent came along. And it was called Short Vincent because it is a really short street. It's about a block long. Its claim to fame, besides being so short, is that it was just full of all sorts of restaurants and bars and things like that.
So it's sort of just a one little block long, but
Yep. Yeah. But full. Yeah.
but full. Oh, awesome. Okay, that makes sense.
I'm going, do you have another question? Because I'm going to see if there's any I'm in the chat if you're in the question place.
I'm in the question and answer.
Okay, Elisa Anderson wants to know about Talk of the Town. I assume you mean Top of the Town. I'm not familiar with one called Talk of the Town. Top of the Town was a Stouffer's restaurant in Iroquois Tower. It was a pretty popular place. I do mention it a bit in the book. I don't know what particular thing you want to know about it. So if you can be more specific, I'll try to answer that. Sue Madden says she went to Bucares in 1968. Carla asks, what was your research like for the book? Hard. Yeah, well, what made it hard actually was not so much that it was different than most research projects, but it was the bulk of it happened during COVID. And so I couldn't go to normal places that I would go. Luckily, I had some things available to here in my house because I had written an article for the Encyclopedia of Cleveland History on Cleveland restaurants. And that was back before the internet. So I actually had hard copies. But otherwise, that was the biggest difficulty, which then got compounded because when COVID got into full swing, I couldn't get any pictures. The Cleveland State Memory Project was the lifesaver because all of those pictures are online. So things that I hadn't collected prior to that, I was able to get by them. So that. Dawn,
okay, Michelle Braverman wants to know, where was the first Stouffer's?
The first one was was Abram and his wife's luncheonette. And let me see if I can get a location for you. You guys need to ask these questions in alphabetical order. You know that, right? Let's see. 158. It was on Euclid, and I should be able to get an exact. It was in the Cleveland Arcade Building in 1922. And they had moved here from Medina. And from there, their family expanded the whole company. So they kept adding restaurants throughout the city, and then eventually, of course, outside of the city, and then went into, like Chef Boyardee did, into processed foods. So that's how they kind of spread out.
Okay, well, what's your personal best memory of a lost restaurant?
My favorite memory is at Chef Hector's. My father used to take us there. We used to go down every year at Christmas time for Christmas shopping. And often he would take us to that Chef Hector's. And it just fascinated me because you saw the picture, it looked like a warehouse. I couldn't believe it was a restaurant. And we'd go down there and it was just amazing. And every time we would go, he would always go, you know, this is Chef Boyardee, like you could buy in the store. We didn't get Chef Boyardee very often because we preferred my mother's spaghetti, but that's a whole different problem. But that's my favorite lost restaurant memory.
I know both of my kids are hooked on Chef Boyardee pasta, canned goods.
Yeah.
Yeah, my son does my son does this concoction where he mixes 2 or 3 different ones together and eats them.
I'm seeing David is asking, is there any restaurant even remotely these days like some of these dining and dancing orchestra playing venues? I wish. There probably is somewhere, but unfortunately, am not in that circle to know where they are. And if someone knows, by all means, let me know. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll get to go there. Jody Saxton asks, talk about the Roxy. Well, for those of you who aren't from around here, the Roxy was a burlesque house. And you can't really talk about Short Vincent without talking about the Roxy. But technically, the Roxy was not a restaurant. It was a burlesque house. And the only reason I was able to include it basically was the building that housed it had a little Coney hot dog stand next to it. But I will tell you one of my favorite things that was told to me by a gentleman who used to work for Stouffer's Corporation, not a particular restaurant. But he used to talk about that he knew that there was a Stouffer's restaurant fairly close to the Roxy. And the boys would try and get up on the roof of that restaurant, and supposedly they could see in to where the girls at the Roxy were able to change clothes. So that was yeah, the Roxy was pretty it went through various stages of entertainment forms, shall we say, from strippers including Ann Corio to soft porn movies by the time it closed. But as a restaurant, not so much.
Sharon would like to know, does your book deal with the Kon-Tiki restaurant?
The Kon-Tiki restaurants were also were in the Terminal Tower, and they too were a chain, part of the Crane company. And I do have a memory about the Kon-Tiki Club down in Cleveland in the Terminal Tower. I went there once, kind of passing through it, and it's just like you think it would be with all the Polynesian decorations and things. But the most interesting thing to me was that it didn't fit the Cleveland environment, because you're looking outside and seeing snow, but you're in this Hawaiian environment kind of thing. So that was kind of funny. Let's see, there's another message here somewhere. The Rock is Jim Flora says, I have to say, Jim Flora needs to be thanked publicly. He sent in quite a few memories that are actually listed in the book. Jim says the Roxy was torn down when National City Center was built, and the restaurant on the lower level of that building was known as the Roxy for at least a time. Yes, and they did that on purpose to kind of tip their hats to the notoriety of the site that they were in. Michael Brown went to the Forum cafeteria. The Forum comes up a lot. It was one of the biggest cafeterias in town at a time when cafeterias were really popular, and it operated in town for quite a while. So it's a happy memory to a lot of people. Jody Saxton talks about going to Captain Frank's. Captain Frank's, another good one, sitting right on the East 9th Street Pier. It was used in a movie, actually, at one point, and was torn down in I believe, the late 80s. And it was right after the steamship William G. Mathers started to become pretty popular as a museum. You have something over there, Dawn, or should I go to the next message?
Go to the next message, yeah.
Okay. Larry Caesar says there was a beautiful wood paneled restaurant in the lower level of Terminal Tower, the Oak Room. Well, the Oak Room is in Terminal Tower, but it's not at the lower level. I think the room that you're talking about in the lower level became Fuddruckers when it became Tower City. The Oak Room, yes, it is on the lower level. I take that back. It's actually still in existence, but it's part of, well, Tower City is owned by one company, and then the Cleveland Renaissance has the hotel. They did not get rid of the Oak Room. It's still there, can be used for private events. And let's see what else I have. Oh, the pillars in it are huge because it is on the lower level. And so you've got these giant pillars, but the room apparently is perfect. I unfortunately did not get to go in it. I was about to make reservations or get a hold of the Terminal Tower Management Company to go see it when COVID hit, so I couldn't get down there. The oak paneling came from Sherwood Forest, as in Robin Hood, which was one of the favorites of the Van Sweringens, who built the Terminal Tower, and their private quarters up at the top of the tower also had oak from the Sherwood Forest in there. I don't know if there's anything else in particular you wanted to know about the Oak Room, but in any event, it's still there, and it reopened in 2017 as a private dining room. So the Caxton, according to Lisa Anderson, the Caxton Cafe on Huron, they had the pleasure of eating there in the early 90s when Michael Simon was the chef. He visited every table the night we were there. The building was or might still be owned by the Bolton family. I don't know who owned the building. You are right about Michael Simon visiting tables. Nancy, one of the ladies who shared her memories for the book, also mentions going there and Michael Simon coming to the table. So that was apparently something he liked to do a lot. Anything about the guardhouse at East 6th and Vincent on Rockwell? No, unfortunately, that I did not get into that for no apparent reason. Sometimes I just couldn't find enough information, or it didn't come to me in enough time to do anything with it. A lot of people ask about the Statler Hotel and Swingos. That was another one of those that I was starting to work on it just as COVID got going. I couldn't find enough interesting stories about the Swingos at the Statler. Yes, Swingos at East 18th and Euclid, tons of stuff. But my book stops at East 17th because the press, Arcadia Press, wanted it to go from Public Square to Playhouse Square. So that Swingos that has all the stories was outside of my purview. So unfortunately, I don't have anything about that. Do you have anything over there, Dar?
No, it's just this is fascinating for me because I'm not, I moved here 22 years ago in 2000 to take my current job at the library, and so I've always been trying to find out more and more about Cleveland's past and culture, mostly cultural things. So this has been fascinating for me. So
Oh, good. I'm not seeing any other questions in this chat box, so I think we have all of them. Oh, yep. Here comes one. Michelle. Oh, once again, thank you for the delightful presentation and the great tour. Well, thanks, Michelle. Thanks for coming.
Yes, that was fun. I love the fact that you did it as a guided tour. That was just a great way to do it.
Well, it was fun to do it that way. And a friend of mine had suggested that, didn't quite suggest it that way, but it triggered the idea in my head. I have another program that I do as a kind of a tour. It's called 50 States in 40 Minutes or Less. And I do something crazy about every single state in the union. And that's kind of what triggers it, that I would do it that way.
Okay, so this was fun. I just love seeing, especially the little bit of the, scandalous, I love scandals.
Yes. Yeah, the scandalous things are fun, that's for sure.
Yes.
Well, if you get the book, speaking of scandalous things, because this doesn't make as much sense without seeing the cute picture in the book. But one of the memories that someone sent in was from a bachelorette party at the New York Spaghetti House, where one of the waiters got a little creative with her order of spaghetti, meatballs, and sausage. Uh, you can get the rest of the story in the book, but you can probably imagine what that waiter did to her. Does anyone remember Rusty Scupper at East 14th and Euclid by Judith
Angst.
Angst? It looks like. Yes, went there a lot, lots of fun. They used to have the singing waiters. So if you went and had a special occasion, you'd get a little serenade. It too was a Stouffer's restaurant. It had a kind of Key West bar in one of the levels, and lots of fun there for sure. They tore it down, unfortunately. It was one of the more unusual buildings in the city with a huge glass walled atrium kind of thing.
Wow, that sounds gorgeous.
It was kind of interesting. Mary Jo McCullovic wants to know if the recording will be available. Dawn, can you help her know how to find that later?
Yes. You can you'll be able to access that, I believe, on our website for a short time. Yes, and probably even on our Facebook page. It'll be if you go to oh no, not Facebook. We have a YouTube channel. Okay. That's where it'll be available for a while.
And I will put a link to that up on our website.
Our YouTube channel. I thought it would be the Facebook page, but it isn't. It's the YouTube channel.
YouTube. You can get more information about my programs at EdenValleyEnterprises.org. And I have a Facebook page. There's also a Facebook page under the name of this book, Lost Restaurants of Downtown Cleveland. And I will put that link both on the website and on the Facebook pages as well. So you'll be able to find it there. And if you have any other questions, my contact information is there. You can always message me or email me there.
Yeah, I do invite everybody to please, like and follow our Facebook, the Euclid Public Library Facebook page, as well as to follow the Euclid Library's YouTube channel. That way, then you'll be able to find out advanced notifications of other great programs that our library is offering, both as we're beginning to move beyond the pandemic to both online and in-person programs.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Carla. If you want to go to the chat box, Carla just typed in the link to my website, EdenValleyEnterprises.org, so you could click on it and go right to it.
Wonderful. Okay.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you to everyone who came to see the program. And I hope next time you get to see a program in person.
Oh, I know. I can't wait. It has been such a long time.
Yeah, it's a little strange to do a program and not see the audience.
Really, yes, it really is. And are you working on a new book? Anything now upcoming?
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. We have been commissioned by Dante Lavelli's daughter, Lucinda, to do a storytelling program and a book about her father, Dante Lavelli. For those of you who are either not from Cleveland or not football fans, Dante was one of the Cleveland Browns Hall of Famers. And we have finished the storytelling program. And for those of you in town, we'll be presenting it at the Lorraine Historical Society on May 14th. That's a Saturday at, I think, 11 in the morning. Kelly Boyer-Sagert is working on the book as we speak, which we hope to have finished, and to Lucinda within the month. And then Lucinda will be making the decisions on how it will get published. But the program is available for anyone who wants to book it. That's done already. So that's our current project. And our big current project actually is we're working on a new documentary on Victoria Woodhull, who was the first woman to run for president of the United States in 1872. We had to scale back our goal on this documentary. We were trying to do all this for the 100th anniversary of the passage of the Women's Rights Amendment. Well, you know what happened in 2020. So it also changed the way funding agencies operated. And so we've had to scale back our goals for how this documentary would be done. And we're trying to fund it ourselves. We hope to start filming this month. For those of you who'd like to be a filmmaker, now's your chance. No donation is too small. And we'd love to have you join our film crew by making a donation. And hopefully we'll get this up and running by late this year or early next year. You can find complete information about that project on our website. We do already have a storytelling program about her ready to go and can be seen or booked by your group. And we have a companion book on sale about her. So that is already done, but that final piece of the documentary is still in the works, and we hope to have that done soon. So if anyone's interested in knowing more about either Dante Lavelli or Victoria Woodhull, by all means, drop me an email or message me on Facebook, and I'll be happy to talk to you about it. And if you have a group that would like to have a program, we're yours.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dawn, for having me. Thank you, Carla, for helping get this moving. And thank you, everyone who joined us.
Yes, thank you, everybody, for attending our program tonight. I do hope you will be checking out our calendar of events at euclidlibrary.org to, perhaps sign up for other events that are upcoming and other book discussions. And we also do Instagram lives and all sorts of different formats. So there's something there for everybody, I believe. We try to have a very varied menu of experiences. So